Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Origin form Palkia VSTAR. So last night the new cards released from the upcoming Japanese set. I believe it's called Time Gazer and Space Juggler. But yeah, so Origin forms of Dialga and Palkia V-Stars were revealed, and I think both of them are very, very good. Both of them definitely have their merits of playing them. I just like the Origin form better. I know some people like, I like the Origin form Palkia more than the Origin form Dialga. They both have their merits. I'll definitely do a video on the Dialga at some point. But today we're starting off looking at the Palkia because I think this deck has a potential to be really, really, really good just because it has so many great attributes about it. So let's just get started here. We are running 4 copies of the Origin form Palkia VSTAR. Now, this is very, very similar to Suicune V. It has an attack for double water energy. It does 60 damage, and then does 20 damage, 20 more damage for each bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. So this hits a maximum of 260. It's Suicune's exact attack, except it does 40 more damage. And then the VSTAR power here, Star Portal, lets you attach 3 water energy cards from your discard pile to your water Pokemon in the new ELEC. And that ability alone makes this card immediately playable. That is playable so many different things. Ice Rider, even like all the other like random VMAXs. You could probably technically play it with like Glaceon VMAX, power that thing up quickly. You could play it with both Inteleon VMAXs. You can play with Gyarados VMAX. There's so many ways you can play this card. Now, unfortunately, it does only accelerate onto water Pokemon, which definitely limits the ways you can play this. You can't play it with like Ditto VMAX or something funny like that. It only accelerates onto water Pokemon. Oh, excuse me. But nonetheless, it is still a super, super strong card, and there are many different ways that you can play it. I'm looking at Stray version today, but you can play it with just so many different Pokemon. Now, some people might wonder, isn't Suicune V just better? It has, it has Fleet-Footed to get more cards. It has attack cost is more suited towards using capture energy, and it's also just a basic Pokemon. Now, I did talk with one of my friends, Will, about this, and I think it's pretty close. They definitely both have their benefits, and they definitely both have their like worths of playing one over the other. Obviously, Suicune is a basic, so it does get access to Ludicolo, but some Suicune lists don't even play Inteleon, so your opponent can play around that one in Knockout. This list, just with the plus 40 damage, naturally will hit higher, because it can also use Choice Spell as well. You don't need to have a Cape of Toughness on to survive. You're already at 280 HP, which is pretty hefty for a lot of Pokemon to one-shot on like the second turn of the game. Like Mew is the only one that can actually do that, and even Mew kind of has to pop off a little bit and able to get that knockout early. But so yeah, you're able to attach Choice Spells because your HP is already pretty high, and you can use Hawlucha V-Star technically, or Sparkling Hawlucha. We are playing a different Sparkling Pokemon in this list specifically. You can do that to buff your damage a little bit more. Just the damage output, I just think, is overall just a tiny bit better and more stable than Suicune. You can play like a 1-0 Suicune in this deck, but I do think overall they are pretty even in which is better than the other. Going into the basic Evolving V, it's not terribly great. I'm not even going to show it to you guys. It's not that amazing, but it can be kind of niche sometimes, I guess. But for a single water energy, you get to search your deck for a stadium card and put it in your hand. Now, it is quite unfortunate that this is not put it in play. If it put it in play, that would be amazing. You could just turn one Path of the Peak, guaranteed, if you had a water energy, which would be really, really good. You could also get out stuff like, I don't know, like Old Cemetery to buff for damage. If it went into play, it would be so much better and just so much like of a cooler attack. But since it doesn't go into play, it's not great. We don't run that many stadiums. We run a single stadium in this specific list. So this attack is not going to be terribly useful. Well, that's the second attack for water, colorless is 200 damage, and then this Pokemon can attack during your next turn. Standard Evolving V stuff. I suppose since you can accelerate to this pretty easily with the VSTAR power, it can be like an okay attacker, if like you know that it's never going to get one shot, can be nice. Or against like poison decks, you can attack with that, get poisoned, then evolve into your V-Stars to get rid of the poison. There's stuff that you can do that you will be using this attack, but other than that, there's just not many uses where you're actually going to be attacking with the evolving V. We're just here to evolve into the V-Star. Now, we are obviously playing this with the Inteleon engine. It's because the Inteleon engine is just so good. Like, Inteleon engine is undeniably good for decks that want to have a lot of Pokemon in play, like Suicune, and like this Origin Form Palkia. So we're running the Inteleon engine with the Foresaw, for Drizzile, and the Inteleons here. We're running 2 quick shootings. I can honestly see this going up to a 3rd if you really want to. Just get that little bit more edge in terms of damage output. But you have plenty of ways to search him out. He plays good nets and stuff. Yeah, we're playing 2 quick shootings, 1 shady dealings. And I just think this is like overall the optimal Inteleon line. In a lot of decks, like I just mentioned, you can go up to a 3rd quick shooting if you want, but I think just staying here will be fine. We have one other Pokemon that is going to be 1 copy of Sparkling Greninja. Now I think this card is really, really good in this deck. I didn't have it in my list initially. Then I saw Jake Gearhart put it in his list, and I just realized, oh my gosh, Sparkling Greninja is just a bonkers card in this deck. So for those of you who don't know, you can only have 1 Sparkling Pokemon in your deck. Not like Prism Stars, where you can only have 1 Prism Star with the same name. You can only have 1 Sparkling Pokemon, period. So you cannot have a Sparkling Greninja and a Sparkling Hawlucha in the same deck. You have to choose one. This deck specifically running Sparkling Greninja because the ability lets you just discard an energy card from your hand and draw 2. So it's just a basic draw engine, which is crazy, especially since this deck kind of sometimes wants to get water into discard pile, so you can accelerate it with the VSTAR Power. That can be nice. But I think what makes this card insanely cracked in this deck is the attack. The attack is really, really good for a water colorless. You discard your energy from this Pokemon, but you hit 2 of your opponent's Pokemon for 90. And that might seem a little underwhelming. Like 90 damage, that's not that much. But it's kind of like a mini. It's basically like a mini rapid flow. For this deck that can hit decently high numbers, it could just sometimes like set up math. Like if you hit 2 VMAXs for 90, and then like Inteleon pings a choice spell and a couple attacks with Origin Form Palkia VSTAR later, you got a knockout just because you hit that for 90. Also, 90 damage can KO Drizziles, it can KO Sobbles, it can KO Houndours. So early game, this thing puts on a ton of pressure to those decks that just want to evolve their little Pokemon to get their engine going, to get their cards, to get their energy, like Houndoom. This card is just really, really good for that. It's just an overall super solid card, and you can actually power it up. You don't have to play like Frostmoth. A lot of the problem with these like single prize water Pokemon attackers, they didn't have a great way to be powered up other than like Raihan and Frostmoth. Now that we have the Origin Form Palkia VSTAR's power, which can just be used to power this thing up in one fell sweep. Not to mention you also get the ability to Melanie to it. On the same turn, you use the VSTAR Power and Attach Return, so you're not going to be hurting in terms of getting energy on your board and on the Sparkling Greninja. I just think this card is just bananas. It's in this deck. It's crazy how good this card is and how good it can, or how much it can get back games. Now, the next card might seem a little bit weird, and that is a full 4 copies of the new Irida. I think that's what it's called, or it's Irida. I don't know. One of those. I don't play the game or watch the anime much at all, so I don't know how you pronounce this. Let me know in the comments if you do know how you pronounce it. But this supporter card, search your deck for a water energy, water Pokemon, sorry. Search your deck for a water Pokemon and an item card. So it's basically almost an exact reprint of Karina, which came out a while ago. But Karina, search your deck for a fighting Pokemon and a item card, I believe. So this is literally just the exact same thing as Karina, except it searches a water Pokemon instead. Now, it might seem a little bit weird, like, why are you playing 4 copies? Just play a draw supporter. Now, this list actually only plays 1 draw supporter that actually says draw cards, and that's Melanie. We play 1. And other than that, this deck can rely pretty heavily on Irida just because you can power yourself up without having to use Melanie for the turn with the Origin Form Palkia's VSTAR. You just, the VSTAR is just overall sets itself up if you have just like a couple Drizziles. And this Irida can just set up a couple Sobbles. It can set up your Sparkling Greninja. It can get that out. It can do pretty much anything, and because of you play the Drizzile Inteleon engine, this Irida basically just says search your deck for 2 cards, because you can search out the initial item card, and you can search out the level ball to get the Drizzile to get the other trainer that you want. So yeah, so you can get the water Pokemon with the Drizzile, and then you can also get like the level ball for the Drizzile, or you can just get the card, because it does search for item card, and usually you're not going to be searching supporters with this. Yeah, I just think in a deck that doesn't play any special energy is like the one card that's kind of lacking good item search outs. You don't have any special energy in this deck, so you can just kind of go nuts with the Irida and search for basically any card you want whenever you want. It basically, only downside of this is it uses up your support for the turn, which is pretty good for just being able to search for any 2 cards you want. It's basically just like Peony on steroids for this deck. It's just, this card is so good as support of, and it's definitely going to be a card that you're going to be relying on a lot and using a lot. Just because you don't, why play draw supporter? You can just get the cards with this. Like, that's my point. We play 2 copies of Boss's Orders, because you do need a Gust, and that's the other benefit I think of Origin Form Palkia VSTAR. If you get some you get some doubles down turn 1, you get Origin Form Palkia, but you don't get energy attachment. Usually, decks like Ice Rider are forced to Melanie, so you can't get like a quote unquote free hit on an Evolving V going second. But because we have our VSTAR power, that's basically just like a Melanie without having to use a supporter. So Boss's Orders is going to be live for us turn 2, even if we don't get a attachment down turn 1. If we get enough Drizzles and we can get those like energy in the discard, we're going to be having a pretty good time in terms of bossing turn 2. We play a couple other one of supporters. 1 copy of Leon, which I haven't tested as much as the other counts of cards in this list, but it seems pretty solid overall. Make your Pokemon hit an extra 30 damage is really good. And when you don't have to play a draw supporter because you have Drizzile, and you don't need to play a Melanie to power your guys up because you have the VSTAR power, like this deck just takes care of all its problems here. In theory, you could play this deck with 0 supporters, just because Drizzile searches out everything you'd ever want, basically. But you know, just Irida is a good card, so we're playing Boss, of course. But Leon can, once again, do what Suicune can't, buff your damage output a little bit more reliably. You don't have to get like a Candy Ludicolo. Leon just does it, and if you have that plus a couple quick shootings and a choice belt, you're essentially doing like what Ludicolo would do, except it's on a 280 HP 2-price Pokemon that will almost always be getting 2-shot pretty early on in the game. So Leon's just, I think, a really solid card overall. We have 2 more one-of cards, 1 copy of Raihan, just because it's undeniably just a really good card in Drizzile Engines, and 1 copy of Melanie as well to round out the supporters. I like the supporter count a lot. It's felt fine. Like I just was talked about, Irida is a ridiculous card, I think, in the Inteleon engine build of the deck. Moving on to our items, of course, for Quick Ball, you can't play a deck without it, so of course you're running them. 4 copies of Level Ball, you know, like standard Shady Dealings engine stuff. 3 Incense, which might seem a little bit weird, but remember we have our Irida, and we have our and we have like Ultra Balls and stuff. We only actually have 1 Ultra Ball, but we have like our Irida with searching out things. We have our Greninja to search out things. We have our Drizzile to just get the Incense for our V-Star. Finding Pokemon is not going to be any issue in this deck, except for maybe turn 1 if you don't get an amazing hand. 2 copies of Capacious Buckets. So Irida basically just can search for 2 water energy if you want. For your item card, just grab Capacious Bucket, get some water energies. It's just, Irida is such a broken card. I'm telling you guys, Irida is so good. But yeah, Capacious Bucket, searching for 2 water energies. Your Dogga's attack only costs 2 water energies, so there you go. Just get out the 2 energies and double attach return or something. 2 copies of Skip Nets so we can reuse those quick shootings, and we can reuse the Inteleons, the Drizziles, even Shining Greninja. Shining Greninja, I think, yeah, so it doesn't say Rulebox. So Skubana does not say Rulebox, it just says V or GX, which means you can see the Shining Greninja and just use the ability twice, which is broken. An ability, a basic ability that just says draw 2 essentially, because you have Capacious Buckets and Drizzile search them out and stuff, is just nuts. Scuonet is just really overall a super useful card in the deck. 2 copies of Choice Belt, like I mentioned, so you can hit those numbers in combination with the Inteleons, the Leon, stuff like that to help you reach those one-shots. 1 copy of Ultra Ball, 1 copy of Switch, because we do have our entire deck is single prizes for our 4/4 Fortune Palkia, so Scuonet will suffice unless our opponent does decide to just boss up our Origin Palkia and we use our VSTAR Power and Power Million. There's so many situations that it could come up in. Just one Switch is a good card, so we're just running 1. 1 copy of Echoing Horn as well, because if your opponent has a basic in this card and not a full bench, this essentially just says your attack is 20 more damage. So there we go, more damage, but it's essentially for our deck. Stadiums, 1 copy of Training Court, and I think 1 Training Court and just 1 Stadium in general is going to be mandatory for any VSTAR deck that has a VSTAR Power. Like I think Samurai deck, if it does end up being played with the Inteleon engine, which let's admit it probably will, and the Inteleon engine is just way too good. You're going to want to play just a single stadium, so you can just out for a stadium to bump your opponent's path, so you can actually just use that once per game ability. Then on your rule box, I forgot to mention actually, Path of Peak does shut down your Sparkling Ninja because your ability, Sparkling Ninja, because it does have a rule box, just something initial thing to note. So, Training Core can be used, so you can use your Sparkling Ninja as well. But it's mainly here just so you can use your VSTAR Power when you have to, and you can just get back some energies, because we have like 1 Melanie, 1 Raihan. Those are our VSTAR Power, which is like, it will suffice most games, except if you're playing like Crushing Hammers or something, it can get a bit annoying. And then we are running 11 Water Energies to round out the list. I do have the new Brilliant Stars Water Energies. I really like these a lot. The new Brilliant Stars Energies just look really good. In general, I don't have enough of them, so I'm running 2 of the Sword and Shield ones, which I do not like nearly as much, but that is something that we will have to deal with. Anyway, back to the deck. So we're running 11 energies, which has felt fine so far. If you want to add another one, I wouldn't hate it. If you want to add another Capricious Bucket, I wouldn't hate it, just because sometimes it just feels good in general, just getting down the energy attachment turn 1, and more energy attachments. You could run a Crobat. That's something that I've considered as well. It just seems like your deck is very focused on making your opponent go through some big Pokemon, as well as some big damage output. And Crobat just kind of makes it easier for one to just knock out 2 Palkias and boss per game on the Crobat. Because 180 HP on a 2-prizer is really bad. That's really bad. That's just when V-Stars are in the meta that have 100 more HP than your Crobat. Just a 2-prizer that's essentially just a V-Star knockout that has 100 less HP is really squishy, really easy for your opponent to knock out. But you really have to weigh that. Like, is the value of Crobat that much that it is worth taking that risk? I think that's something that you'll probably have to test to figure out more. These cards have been out for like literally almost 24 hours, so haven't had much time to think about it, test it that much. But the couple games I've played with this list, it has felt super good and super solid, super consistent as well. That's the other thing. I'm really important when playing decks, as I really like to be consistent. But that's going to do it for the video. If you guys liked it, don't leave a like. We'll probably be covering the Dialga at some point, maybe even tomorrow if I get around to it. I will be doing the Dialga. I definitely don't think Dialga is as good and as versatile as this. But I do think the Dialga does have its merits as well. If you don't know what that does, you can either look it up or wait till the video tomorrow. And yeah, that's going to do it for the video. I will see you guys in the next one.